This is Flick,
This is Rudy.
and today is the big 5-0, the big birthday episode for us at the Left of the Dial podcast. It's episode number 50 and our first anniversary episode.
That's pretty amazing. I wasn't sure, how many people in America or around the world at this point? Because I mean, we're international.
We're
How
global.
many? We're global. How many people sit around saying, we should do a podcast and never do? I mean, I was certainly, I probably have 30 ideas for them, and I never actually did any of them. We actually did it. We did it for a year.
Yeah, and counting.
It's very interesting. We did make it to episode 50. I've spent quite a bit, and that's what we're going to do today. Is where I think we want to do a little trip down memory lane. I
Yeah,
think
we're just going to we're gonna freewheel it a little bit, just kind of look back and look back at what we've done. Uh, Reminisce, talk about what stands out to us, what we remember fondly, what maybe we don't remember so fondly,
yeah,
uh, hopes, aspirations, dreams,
yeah.
all of
This is also a very exciting. Now we've done 50 episodes, but we've never done one of them live together in the same place at the same time. Even pre-COVID, we didn't because I was living in the northern New Jersey outside New York, and you're living in the heartland. You're in Iowa, but my big thing is I left New Jersey this week, and I got myself a place in Iowa. So we're going to be, we're not going to be in the same part of Iowa, but
yeah. Now
I
we're
think
we're still like a couple of 100 miles apart or so.
that is true. But that does theoretically increase the odds that eventually we'll get an episode done in the same room at the same time. I don't even know how we'll do it. But anyway,
Yeah, it will. I'm sure it will happen at
it
some
will.
point.
It's destiny. It's destiny. And then that means we can go down to Ottumwa and go to Canteen Lunch in Alley. My treat. You'll see. It's tight and right. So that's very exciting. So we made it a full year. We may change a few things up, but mostly, we've been winging it in the sense of not being too rigid in the structure. I think we've certainly started picking up listeners. Certainly in recent weeks, it's been picked up again. So I feel like we learned a lot in our first year. I don't know if you're ready to jump right in. I don't know if is do we
Yeah,
need any
what?
more fanfare or vamp?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, this back padding you can stop, and I mean, not that we won't be doing that as we go, but yeah, we can kind of jump into it as and kind of get to the matter at hand.
Yeah, I think we're trying to figure out what episodes like really stand out, and
Yeah.
and I took that two ways. What individual topics stood out, but also the drafts stand out for me. And I
Mhm.
think it's in part because we started our show. Let me go back to the first. What was our very first?
Okay.
Our
Well, the first episode and the first thing we ever discussed was the most recent album by Slater Kinney,
right.
and
That's episode one.
yeah, and we don't normally like. Yeah, we weren't. It wasn't an album we either of us were very fond of, but we are fond of Slater Kinney, and that's why we discussed it. Normally,
Yeah.
we focus on the albums that we really love. We love Slater Kinney as a band. Didn't necessarily. I'll just speak for myself. But that wasn't my favorite Slater Kinney record by any stretch.
No, and it kind of fell off the earth a little bit. And I don't know if that's because people are sort of just not interested in hearing and them go in a new direction. I hope that's not the case because I can't remember the name of the album before this most recent one, but the one I thought that was a pretty good record. And it was different. Like I don't want them to stop experimenting. I don't know. Maybe it's
You're talking about No Cities to Love.
yeah. No Cities to Love. I thought was pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
it
it,
was
it,
a
it
very good comeback.
Yeah, and that was not just cookie cutter stuff. And frankly, I mean, I loved the Woods. I thought the Woods also stands out as a big leap forward. So, like, they have it in them to do some big leaps forward. They're not all winners. I don't know. I'm not sure time is going to be any kinder to this record. But we'll see. Only one way to find out.
Yeah. And the other records we talked about right away off the top are two that I still listen to regularly and love. They were my two favorite records from 2019 and probably would be at the top of my list for 2020 if they were out this year as well. That would be the self-titled Purple Mountains album.
Yep.
Of course, David Berman's final album, and I think absolutely his best work. And How Do You Love by The Regrets. So my top two albums of 2019 were I think we probably spent more time on those because there were, I don't know, for me those were very big albums of 2019.
Yeah, the Purple Mountains. I think we've talked about this off air a little bit too, which is his death really put a bit of a pall over that album for me, and I put it away for a while. I haven't gone back and listened to it for a little while just because I really am bummed about losing him, and like you said, it is his best work, but I still feel I'm of two minds about that. Like if what I read is true, like he was sort of pressured into this. He had financial reasons to do it. The record.
Okay, so we talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think there's no question in my mind, absolutely 0% question in my mind that he wasn't inspired to do this album, because you don't put up your best work all time because you're in debt. So I don't. Okay. So I understand that he probably was in debt. I don't credit the album to that though.
What I'm saying is that it didn't necessarily bring him joy to make that record. It wasn't. I'm worried it wasn't an enjoyable experience for him. You know what I mean? I'm worried that
That's hard to say, but definitely, it's very inspired work.
It's great. It's his best. And it's so tempting to say he was getting better. Although I don't think the last two Silver Jews records. I'm not sure. Certainly, the last one was not the pinnacle of the Silver Jews career. So the last couple Silver Jews records I thought weren't as strong. Is that just me?
No, I think I probably agree with that. Like I like them well enough, but they're not.
I got to see both albums tours, so Lookout Mountain, I think, played really well live, really, really well. I enjoyed that a lot. In fact, I brought people to that show who had never heard of them before, and I, my college roommate, and he's got a good ear, and I'm just like, you got to trust me. This band does not tour. You may never have a chance to see them, and they're coming to your town. So I'm coming to your town to see them. And we went, and I've made some converts on that tour. But boy, nothing touches that Purple Mountains record. It is a bit of a bummer. Anyway, I don't want to get off too much that direction.
Right, yeah. Okay, so the other thing that we did in our first episode, we did our first draft. At this point, we're focused on fantasy drafting the bands that we love. Yeah. Back then, we were focused on what we called banality drafts, which was bands that we didn't love so much. We started with the Eagles because basically that was where the idea for the format came from.
But let's see. We've never done a trailer episode where we do too much of our biography, and we do some, but we're not super. I wouldn't describe us as putting our personalities at the center of the show. I don't think that's a big revelation, but the reason these banality drafts hit for us is that both of us met working at radio stations. And we've both worked multiple formats. I think I might have a little more classic rock time than you. Did you ever have to do like classic rock? Or no. Did you ever play the Eagles professionally?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I think so.
Yeah, because I had several years where um in fact I worked at a station that was like oldies and then was like classic hits format, and I think the oldies went far enough to play the first stuff from the first Eagles record. Like I think I've actually had to, for like years and years, had to listen to the Eagles, and you just become numb after a while. And it's there. I think the reason we went heavy on the class, and also we're from Iowa. Like you step within the borders of Iowa even today, and you're gonna hear like Foghat within 15 minutes of arriving. We've been tortured by classic rock our whole lives, and I think it was cathartic, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, but I also think what one thing that I we discussed, and maybe it was more me than you, but with the Eagles, the songs were kind of there. Like there were there weren't songs that I was drafting that I felt were bad songs, and I've thought, coincidentally, really, I've thought more about the Eagles recently, because there have been a lot of, I don't know, Laurel Canyon has played a big part in my TV viewing recently, because there was a 2-part docu-series on Laurel Canyon which was very good.
Yeah.
And then also and also I watched Echo in the Canyon. I don't think they mentioned the Eagles at all in that one, but they did in the Laurel Canyon documentary. And anyway, like I was thinking, quite a bit about the Eagles. There's a lot of backlash. Like I think we both feel a sort of backlash with the Eagles, and I'll kind of sum up my take on it this way: is that we both love Graham Parsons, and
Right.
for me, Graham Parsons was somebody who was very evangelical about country music. Made a lot of converts on the way, but it wasn't so easy for him. Like he did take the Byrds from being, a band that was very much had their own sound, but then transformed them into a country album shortly after joining the band, for Sweethearts of the Rodeo. That's no small achievement, and
No.
really the Rolling Stones, he turned them on to country music as well. But really, when he came along, no, there were a lot of people, I think, that really were kind of not so easily converted by him. And then by the time the Eagles picked up on this format, it was much more amenable to people's, to what's in style.
Right.
And of course they hit it big, and so just like you think about Gilded Palace of Sin and how great of an album that is, and how very little known it is. But then you have the Eagles, who kind of took that form and then just made made millions of dollars. And so to me, that I feel kind of a backlash for that, but I don't think, and then plus, like I think Glenn Fry and Don Henley, their personalities aren't the easiest. They aren't the warmest people, it would seem. So I think it's easy to not like the Eagles for those reasons, but the songs are kind of there. Like I don't really have a problem with the music so much. And I think we talked about that a lot at the time, and I thought about that more recently, just watching that stuff. Just the Eagles are a bit of a mixed bag. You don't necessarily like their personality. You don't necessarily like the fact that they were as successful as they were, in contrast with how unsuccessful Graham Parsons was. But
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with the songs, really.
I think every one of their hits has at least one cringeworthy line. I think even or some just such hack cliche that it ruins otherwise nice ditties. And they have a couple moments that are fantastic. One of these nights is fantastic. Take It to the Limit is fantastic. Some of the Joe Walsh stuff too, I thought at the end was really, really good.
Yeah.
You can't knock that stuff, but like those, even the Eagles at their best are pale in comparison to like Fleetwood Mac of that era. Like the Eagles get lumped in with Fleetwood Mac, and that to me is offensive. That it's not close. Fleetwood Mac's like that streak that Fleetwood Mac had from the self-titled record to Tusk through Tusk with Rumors in the middle, I mean, is toweringly great. Like big achievement. And I think during that same period, the Eagles probably outsold them. Certainly the most greatest, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. I don't think it's true anymore, but the Eagles' greatest hits, that blue album cover, was I think the biggest selling album of all time for most of certainly the last 50 years. I mean, that's really...
Well, yeah, but you know, like, I don't know. My tendency is just to strip away whether or not something was commercially successful or not, and then just judge it on the basis of the music alone. You know, I don't know. I do like a lot of those Eagles songs. I don't spend a lot of time listening to them, but I don't have a problem with listening to them. I don't, you know.
You know, I just got burned out on them when I was, because the classic hits format, and I got to be the music. When I say I was the music director, that implies I had something to do with the songs that were played. It just means I print out what the software said to play. You know, we were still doing printouts in those days. The number of songs from the Eagles on the playlist was unbelievable. I mean, every single song on both of the greatest hits records, 1 and 2, was in the playlist, plus stuff like Old 55 and a bunch of other Greeks Don't Want No Freaks, like album cuts. I've never seen, and you know what? I never had nobody ever called to request the Eagles. That's the thing I could never understand when I was doing commercial radio on the FM side. Is like, the playlists that we would get in, they'd have these certain bands that we would just play over and over and over, literally carpet bombing Earth with them. And I guess that's maybe answered my own question. That's why nobody called in requests, because if you just wait over 15 minutes, you'd hear it. But it just seems strange that these bands no one requested, and the Eagles is one of those bands that no one ever requested, but we played the crap out of. I think I just have some unresolved issues.
You kind of brought up another thing that I've thought about. And I don't know, I had a thought about this, and I don't really remember the context of it all, but just how classic rock radio works, and you have the Eagles, you know, getting the kind of treatment that you mentioned, and Led Zeppelin gets the same kind of treatment, and I love Led Zeppelin. I'm not complaining about this, but those are two bands, you know, especially I think with Led Zeppelin, where just like just about any song from Led Zeppelin 1 through 4 could be on the radio at any given time on classic rock, in that classic rock format.
Yeah.
But then you have, you know, like say the Who, where you have some stations, I think, that will reduce the Who to Baba O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again, and maybe one or two others.
Yeah, Who Are You?
And then, you know, the Kinks. I absolutely love the Kinks. They get, I think, the raw deal on the radio. Like, why don't more bands get that sort of Led Zeppelin treatment? Where I mean, there are so many more bands to me that are worthy of that don't get that kind of treatment.
Yeah, there was that time where there was a couple radio formats that really tried to get rid of the eras and just play great songs across time. And I don't know, the ones that were where they admitted that it was basically an algorithmic jukebox. I can't remember there was a name for that format for a while, but I gotta think at some point there has to be. Why, you're right. Why wouldn't the Kinks have been a bigger deep cuts on the Kinks? Absolutely. I think especially now with the way indie music has gone, a lot of the sort of deep cuts from the Kinks have absolutely been validated and really ended up being massively influential on American indie music, certainly of this century. I can't think of I mean, I don't even. I'm not trying to do a hot take. I apologize, even if for advance that it even sounds like a hot take. But the Kinks' influence on American indie, I think, is probably even greater than certainly the Rolling Stones, and it's up there with the Beatles. I think I don't hear as much once the Elephant Six stuff went away. I really haven't heard a ton of the Beatles influence, but boy, the Kinks, even to this day, are just all over indie music.
Yeah, well, and I think maybe part of that is because it took a long time for some of those songs to surface. Yeah, because they don't get the same kind of attention, but it's just strange to me that that I don't know, I don't want to spend too much time talking about radio formats. That's definitely not the purpose of the show,
Yeah,
but it's weird to me how just like a couple of bands get that kind of treatment, and then everybody else just maybe gets reduced to 2 or 3 songs that they'll play in heavy rotation.
yeah.
I don't really understand that.
So we did a lot of Banality Draft, and I enjoyed those. We haven't done a Banality Draft in a long time. I can't remember. I can't remember even. Did we ever do the Doobie Brothers? Because they made the Rock and Roll
Yeah,
Hall of Fame this week. We did
we
do the
did.
Doobie Brothers. Yeah,
We did do the Doobie Brothers. It was not my favorite one to do by any stretch. But we did them. We did Phil Collins. We did John Cougar Mellencamp.
yeah.
We did Styx. We did an episode where we talked about the Pixies and did a Benality draft of Styx. Not planned, just totally coincidental, and we called it the Pixies Styx episode.
Yeah, we did not do a lot of prep here in formal prep, but
Mm-hmm.
if I was to award an episode, if I was to do like a Hall of Fame draft of episode names, they all come from you.
Thank you.
My Beck Pages, Pixie Sticks. I would never have caught that one. You do have the gift. I'm going to grant you that. I'm going to make you love me. Oh, go ahead.
Can you imagine what we'd be kicking ourselves right now if we did that episode where we talked about the Pixies and we talked about Styx and didn't even make that connection? Like that would be regrettable.
It would be regrettable. It would be regrettable. I mean, doing a show in which the topics are the Pixies and Styx, I will say I can't think of a way that anybody organically could have thought of it. Like it could only possibly have been a coincidence. There's no way anybody sits in advance and conjures that.
Yeah, the planets were lining up there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know if I'd go that far. All right, so we've discussed it fairly recently because we did an "I'm Going to Make You Love Me" episode. I'm going to say I would like us to stay on the album and not the band model. I'm finding it much easier and much more entertaining.
I think we still should do a little bit of both. I imagine the album thing will be more. The way I see it at this point, the album thing is probably going to be more prominent, just like the way the Banality drafts. We sort of ran out of material there because there aren't that many bands to do Banality drafts of. I think that will kind of be the same way with "I'm Gonna Make You Love Me" format. And for anybody not familiar with what that is, we call it "I'm Gonna Make You Love Me." Rudy comes in with a band or an album that he wants me to listen to, and I do the same to him. We exchange, we listen to them, and we report. We give our thumbs up, thumbs down, and that sort of thing. And it's just about trying to convert each other to things that we're really into.
Yeah, the album format's just been easier for me. Especially if a band has a lot of music and trying to cover their whole career. Like Sloan was a big catalog. Magnetic Fields is a very big catalog.
Yeah, and we've done it with Guided by Voices, and it's I could come in with I could come in and make you listen to B1000, but that's only going to be like that's like 1% of the Guided by Voices catalog. One album is like 1% of the catalog, even if it's a big album like that. So, that's why sometimes I think it has to be a kind of a compilation, that we're putting together for these bands.
Yeah, I'm. I don't know if we don't have anything current, right? We don't have anything in the cooker, any bands or albums in the hopper for a future episode, do we?
Well, I mean, we still do have we do still have some lists that I think each of us put together a while back that we haven't gotten to yet.
Interesting. All right. Well, we've got that stuff in the hopper. I have to confess, I haven't been checking back to the old playlist. I did go through and look at our playlist. We're starting to accumulate some followers. If you're listening and you're a follower, I appreciate that. I've become a follower of one of our followers. I won't mention the person or their account, but we have at least one listener who I've gone and checked, and their playlists are proper. I'm hoping this becomes a more common thing. Is there any easier way to find music than to have somebody who knows music make a recommendation to you? I mean, it's the easiest way to go. And our listener, who I'm a follower of, is Top Shelf playlist maker. I feel like that's a big thing for the year to come. More playlists and more playlist sharing. In fact, weren't we even saying before we started that we should mention? I don't know if we didn't really talk about it as a format, but we definitely. I think there's a trivia episode in the future, almost a game show style format in the future. I'd go mano a mano with you on some trivia. We would need somebody to play the MC though.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to try and stump the band, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
And or come in, with some trivia and see, have pit the two of us against each other and see how that goes. I would be all for
it. Fun. I'm down with that. I mean, it really does depend on the genre. There are several genres that you will just pound me flat on, but I've got my moments. I'll be very interested to see how that goes. Can you guess what the longest episode was of our first year?
I know we broke the deuce a couple of times, but I don't quite remember what they were.
Episode 34, the party episode with May birthdays.
Right. Yeah, that was one. That was one where I'm a big show prepper, and and I wanted to do something where we focused on birthdays, and I was going to, it started out with the idea of let's do May birthdays, and then I looked and saw how many of them there were, and I was like, well, maybe we reduce this down to a 2-week period, but it didn't work out that way, and so I think I literally mentioned more than 100 birthdays that took place in the month of May.
So one of the big bummers this week is it went from, both of us are here in the upper Midwest right now. It went from summer to fall literally overnight. Like Monday was shorts, sandals. I even went swimming on Labor Day. And then it's bad enough you have to come off a 3-day weekend like that. I'd go back to the grind, and the summer goes away overnight. It became autumnal, literally overnight. And
but not the good kind of autumnal. It's been rainy and cold and windy. Autumn. I love autumn weather, but this is like basically where you're talking like late October, early November type of weather this past week.
Yeah, I do remember that autumn is your favorite season, but you don't want it like this, right?
No, nobody wants this. This is crappy, and apparently by the end of the weekend or at the end of the weekend, we'll probably be back to summer basically here. But yeah, I mean this week is where it's just like the these are the days that you stay inside.
Yeah, it's been pretty gross. We have not even discussed it, but I think it's inevitable that the first topic we're going to do twice then has to be autumn playlist, right?
Yeah, unless you count Prince as a topic.
Well, I do, but if we're going
or Bob Dylan, because yeah, I mean those. Yeah, I mean certain bands we've talked about multiple times certainly, and so covers for lovers. We've done certain formats multiple times.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as like the theme, yeah, that would probably be the first thing that technically we revisit.
The only other one we might be able to revisit, and I think when we did Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year, did we do it at the potential induct? No, we did the actual inductees, did we not?
No, I think we did. Who are nominees and
who were nominees? All right, so we know some of these made it and some of them don't. I don't know that we necessarily need to do a show covering who actually made it. I know Motorhead did not, which I consider a bit of a travesty, but maybe we can do the nominations for 2021 when they come out. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, I don't know, and just because we're on the topic, I'll just mention I am happy to see T-Rex make it in. That being said, I'm maybe not so enamored of the whole class, but very happy to see T-Rex in. I don't know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is it's a very mixed bag for me.
I think we talked about it at the time. I think we both or at least I for sure enjoyed the Experience Music Project in Seattle more than I liked the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it did better stuff. The Rock and Roll Hall. Well, okay, so the highlights of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for me were they had drawings that Jimi Hendrix did when he was a kid. Some handwritten lyrics by Springsteen there. Those were the cool things. But then there were a lot of things. I don't know. I don't get too jacked up about a lot of that stuff. But there are those things, like pictures that Jimi Hendrix drew when he was a kid. I really like seeing things like that because that gives you an insight to something that shows his personality, and it isn't really music. It gives you more of a full picture of him as a human, and I would like to see more things like that really in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I could see that. So just so I don't want to be too cute. So I'm actually going to read off who made it this year. The actual inductees are Depeche Mode, the Doobie Brothers, Whitney Houston, Nine Inch Nails, T-Rex, and Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah, which not a bad class. I'm certainly not a big Doobie Brothers fan. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I think the Doobie Brothers are a little lightweight for this list. I definitely Biggie belongs for sure. Whitney Houston belongs for sure. I'm a Depeche Mode fan. I'm a little on the fence on that one. I do think they were pioneers of sort of the electronic music within British indie, and that mattered. Nine Inch Nails has a couple of great albums under their belt. Is that a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame career?
Yeah, well, you just summed up the whole thing for me. There's a lot of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members where it's just kind of like, did they really do enough to be Hall of Famers? It's like, yeah, this record or these hits that they had were decent enough, but did they really do enough? It's like, the baseball equivalent, I think would be, like Von Hayes of the Philadelphia Phillies. He's a pretty good player, but he's not a Hall of Famer. So
yeah, I mean,
I don't know why that's the example I came up with.
Well, look, you're the Philly boy Roy of this conversation, so
that's right. Yeah, I guess I guess that's channeling Philly Boy Roy with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure he would be all for having Von Hayes in the Hall of Fame.
Wait, is
But
Larry Boa in the Hall of Fame? That would be my.
no,
That
he's not really a Hall of Fame worthy player. He was a good enough player. He wasn't a Hall of Fame worthy player. Manny Trio.
Larry Boa and Manny Trio, not even in the same breath, son.
Well, they had respectable careers for sure, both of them.
Weren't they traded for each other?
Maybe at some point, both
At
of
the
those
Cubs,
guys.
I think they swapped right around the same time. I think Manny Trio went to the Phillies. Anyway, I love the open format. I'm enjoying. I think we should without any shame discuss the 1983 Phillies. Just we'll do it on another. I think that's a show for another time.
Who became the 1984 Cubs?
That's exactly right. And it also gives us a chance to reference Lee Elia. And if we're going to sidebar, Lee Elia's rant is, if you love baseball in any form, or if you've ever been to Chicago, just go to YouTube and type in Lee Elia, Elia, rant. Here ends the lecture on that one.
Well, yeah, okay, and I'll put in a couple of honorable mentions there for great rants.
Yeah.
Terry Burns, former Minnesota Vikings head coach, has one of the all-time great F-bomb dropping, just like an F-bomb minefield that he put out there in a press conference back in the 80s. And then, of course, you have your classic Jim Mora playoffs rant,
great, yeah.
And your Allen Iverson practice rant. They're all pretty good.
Did Hal McRae throw a phone? I think the guy from the Royals, was that Hal McRae who threw the phone?
Oh yeah, Hal McRae when he was managing.
Yeah, that's a good time. Well, look, if I was going to throw a phone in anger about the Hall of Fame, get such a great segue there. Pat Benatar not being, she was a nominee and not inducted. I know that you don't necessarily aren't feeling her for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. However, if Hall & Oates is in, denying Pat Benatar.
Well, but Hall & Oates should not be the line. Hall & Oates should not be in. I don't want to go too.
All right. I feel you.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see Hall & Oates as Hall of Famers, and therefore I don't see Pat Benatar as Hall of Famers. She had some good hits. I don't think it's enough of a career. I think I don't know. To me, having hits isn't the end all be all. But of course, this is why I don't really want to go into it, because then it becomes about how important are having hits, and I don't know. It's not my forte. I don't really. But this is a good segue, because we did want to talk about Spotify, and this is a good segue into this, because we did intend to. We've had a lot of discussions about Spotify over the course of the year, and of course we use it for our playlists.
Yeah.
But I think you like to be able to measure things in numbers, and to me, I measure. Like it really is about how important it is to me, and it doesn't matter to me how many streams something has. But over the course of the year, it's something that's stuck around. And, eventually I got to the point where it just like I started to make the connections into how a song becomes the top stream song for a band usually. And what I found out is a lot of times it's because there are playlists for a lot of bands on Spotify that are called "This Is So and So." Like this is this is the Kinks. I think it isn't always grammatically correct. But anyway, a lot of times that first song on that becomes the big high stream song. And my prime example of this is with Mavis Staples, where she had a duet that she did with Van Morrison. And it's definitely not the song that should be the highest streamed Mavis Staples song, but it is because it happens to be the number one song on the This Is Mavis Staples playlist. So anyway, I thought maybe it'd be a fun game to just try and randomly go after certain bands.
Sure.
And and say, and each of us can say, okay, this is the song that should be the top stream song. This is the song I think will be the top stream song. And then we can see if the song that actually is the top stream song is the number one song.
I'm down with that.
All right, so let's start. Or do you have a request for who we start with?
Simon and Garfunkel.
Okay, so let's go to Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, I would say, I think Sound of Silence should be the number one streams.
All right. Yeah. What else? Keep going. And what do you think is?
I'm gonna say Mrs. Robinson maybe is.
So this is a case for the ghost of Johnny Cochran. The number one most streamed version or song is The Sound of Silence. However, it's the acoustic version from Wednesday morning 3 a.m.
Oh, now that's the wrong one.
That has to be because of what you were saying is that must kick off the playlist. It is superior. But it is not the one that people know.
Okay, and then
yes.
Okay, so did you know that going in? Because we could try to both have a guess for this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I cheated. The minute you guessed, I went and looked.
Okay, so on the next one, let's
we'll both do together
if we don't already know, and if we do, one of us happens to know, then we should just state that off the top of the bat. Okay, right. So where is This Is Simon and Garfunkel playlist? Because I can't find that.
I can't either, and I'm not gonna. Well, you're right. You're right. We have to do the sleuthing here. I think it's
okay. So actually, I'm looking at it though, and okay, yeah. So Mrs. Robinson is close. It's 10 million off.
Yeah. So. If I found the This Is Simon and Garfunkel playlist. This actually does screw with your theory a little bit, but actually I'm gonna give you the mulligan on this. The number one song on their playlist is Mrs. Robinson from the Graduate soundtrack, which is the number 2 on the playlist. And then right after that is on the This Is Simon and Garfunkel is the acoustic version of Sound of Silence. Now again, I do analytics for a living, and so I'm doing a little bit of. This is a little bit of silver tongue devil stuff to be doing with data like this, but The Sound of Silence is the second song, the acoustic version. It's the second song on their This Is Simon and Garfunkel playlist. What this has to mean is that people are opening up the This Is Simon and Garfunkel playlist and skipping Mrs. Robinson. It means that they're getting a list and they're like, oh, I know Mrs. Robinson. I'm going to go right to Sound of Silence because I prefer that. So you're right. Even though Mrs. Robinson is the first song on that playlist and it's the number 2 overall listened to one, there's no other explanation for how the acoustic version of The Sound of Silence could be number 1.
Okay. So I propose that next because fans also like. Fans also like you have Cat Stevens, so let's do Cat Stevens next.
Oh boy,
you go first.
It should be Morning Has Broken, but it's probably Wild World.
Okay. Okay. So my favorite Cat Stevens song is Trouble, so I'm going to say that should be number 1 just because it's my favorite song by him. I'm going to agree. I think I'm going to agree that Wild World will be the number 1.
Yeah. All right. Well, I cheated and looked. It's Wild World is number 1. Peace Train. I'm sorry. It's Wild World, then Father and Son, then Morning Is Broken. I mean,
and I'm gonna bet Trouble. Trouble isn't even in the top 10, but that should be number 1 because it's, I think, his best song.
Well, let's see what this is. Yusuf Cat Stevens. Wild World is the first song on the
Yeah.
playlist. Morning is Broken is second. Then Father and Son. So, I mean, I don't think of Father and Son being up there. Trouble's way
Uh,
down there.
so Father and Son though was the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah, but that's my
Um,
whole problem. That would be my gripe with the Spotify playlist is whatever Dim Bulb puts these songs on these movie soundtracks makes them gigantic, and it makes everything like a parody of itself.
well, but that's why I say you shouldn't put too much stock in it, and I kind of take exception to the dim bulb thing because I think the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks are very good. Um,
Oh, that's all straight. Well, all right. I don't want to hot take that stuff. I blame Quentin Tarantino, and I'll leave it at that. That the getting snarky with the soundtracks. Uh, it's beat to
no,
it's
okay.
beat to the ground at this
So
point.
so if we debate this, we're going to go on and on about it because I disagree. I think that I like to see stuff like that on soundtracks. But
It's so played.
but 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 it does, going back to the point I was trying to make with all of this, is just that you shouldn't put stock into this because yeah, I mean it could be because it's the first song on the This Is So and So playlist, or it might be on a soundtrack to a movie or a Netflix show or something like that. And so it doesn't really have the kind of meaning that you might want to put into it. I just don't think it um but yeah, I mean it goes Wild World and then it goes Father and Son and then there's a huge drop off
Yeah.
in the streaming numbers for Cat Stevens. Trouble, as I said, Trouble is that that's like his best song. It's not even anywhere near. It's so I don't know.
Well,
Okay,
we
so
definitely want to do the fans also like again here, and I'm going to pick one just because I'm going to use this as a opportunity to black pill everything. Jackson Brown. What do you think the number one Jackson Brown song is, and what should it be?
I'm gonna guess that Running on Empty is number one. I think These Days is like the best Jackson Brown song.
Yeah. These Days is what it should be. That is his best song. Um, and unfortunately, yeah, I think it's going to be. Is it Doctor My Eyes? I think.
It could be that. Yeah, it could be like Dr. Mize. Could be Somebody's Baby because
Yeah, let's
that
have a
was.
look. I'm cheating. Here we go. Oh! Running on Empty is the most listened to.
See, I'm good at I'm good at guessing what it's gonna be.
Well, Doctor My Eyes is second, but yeah, Running on Empty. Oh, I don't know. That's not a skill you really want. Hey, I will say the Loadout and Somebody's Baby are in the top five. I could. That's all right. I could
Okay.
tolerate that. I'm with that. No, yeah, These Days by a country mile is the best thing he ever did.
Yeah.
His oh my gosh, the fans also like for Jackson Brown. It really. This is why the '70s are also musically so repulsive. Uh, for all the good in the '70s, there's also this. We'd have to. Can you guess Poco's number one song? Just guess it.
Crazy Love.
Damn it! You're not supposed to go Poco deep, son, and you did. You were right.
That's really like the only one I could think of.
All right, let's do one more. I don't know if we go into Jackson Brown for the fans also like you're getting dangerously close to Bruce Hornsby. Um, let's see, Steve Winwood's possible. Jim
Well,
Croce.
I'm still on the Cat Stevens page, so I
All
could
right, all
go.
right, all right.
We could go Crosby, Stills, and Nash. We could go Gordon Lightfoot.
Ooh,
Uh,
Gord's gold. Yeah, let's try Gordon Lightfoot. I'll try that one.
okay.
Um, it should be. Wow, that's tough. Because I'm gonna say it should be Sundown and it's going to be If You Could Read My Mind.
Yeah, those are the two songs that I think are going in, and I could go either way on what could and what should be on those two. Those two are both, I like both those songs a lot. Um, but yeah, I kind of have a feeling that it's going to be one of those two. Let's just find out what it is. We're
Oh,
kind of okay.
your mind is gonna be blown. Look at the totals.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
So those are the two songs. Yeah, I
and they're
had a
almost
feeling.
statistically identical. Yeah,
And is there a This Is Gordon Lightfoot playlist? Let's see.
that's got to be the first person. You have to be the first person to ask that. Sundown is second to If You Could Read My Mind by a very small number of plays.
Yeah,
that
it
hurts.
is. It's almost a telepathic thing where it's just like I could feel that those two are close and basically interchangeable, and that's what the numbers show.
You have Gordon Lightfoot telepathy. Look, we don't have any merch. We don't have any merch yet, but right there. I don't know if it's a shirt. I don't know if it's a mask, but Gordon Lightfoot telepathy is in there somewhere.
Well, I told this story a few weeks ago or months ago. The last time I was in Toronto, and a friend of mine was taking me around town, and we went by Massey Hall. Gordon Lightfoot was on the marquee and doing like a month-long stand there. So it was just like it was meant to be. You see Massey Hall for the first time, and Gordon Lightfoot's doing a residency.
The Gordon Lightfoot residency at Massey Hall. Like, I haven't spent a ton of time in Canada, but that's a reason to go. I think I could do 2 or 3 nights of Gord.
Okay, so let's do Crosby, Stills, and Nash because it's here. I think this might be tricky because I don't know if there's a different listing for Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Yeah, they're separate.
Okay. So this might not be that much fun. Yeah, if it isn't going to include all of that, this might not be that much fun.
Well, I might try Crosby, Stills, and Nash and say it's going to be Southern Cross, I think.
Ooh. Controversial.
Well, I'm not. I think it's going to be Southern Cross. I'm not saying it should be.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? I do like I like Southern Cross.
Well, okay. I'm gonna say it should be Sweet Judy Blue Eyes because again, this is not including Neil. So Sweet Judy Blue Eyes from the first album. Yeah, Southern Cross. That could be what it actually is. Wayne, what did you say it should be?
Well, I didn't. I was debating whether I should say both Southern, but yeah, I would have said Sweet Judy Blue Eyes too. I would have got. I mean, I cheated and looked ahead, and I would have gotten it wrong. But Sweet Judy Blue Eyes is number 1.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
there we go. There we go.
And number 2
that one right.
is Helplessly Hoping. But Southern Cross it's not dramatically far. There's a big drop off after Southern Cross, although I'm guessing most Crosby, Stills, and Nash fans would say there was a big drop off before then. Yeah, I'm looking at the fans also like for Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and it gets to be pretty thin pickings. I refuse. I will go on strike rather than do Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Here's one. This is one I'm interested to see how well you do. More interested than how well I do.
But before you do that, let's quickly just do Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Yeah. Ooh, that is tough. Because I have a feeling that the CSNNY stuff that appears on Neil Young compilations is probably artificially high up there. Like, I could see Ohio being way up there, even though it shouldn't be.
Well, what's wrong with Ohio?
Nothing, but it's not their best. It's not the best thing they did.
I think you can make a case for it.
What?
Ohio? That's like a landmark song. It's one of the best protest songs of all time.
Yeah, it's a Neil Young song with a great backup band. Um, I would guess it's going to be Our House. Uh, is going to be, and that goes back to the oldies radio thing because Ohio is might get played on like classic rock stations, but the stuff from that first album, the Teacher Children and all that stuff, that was
Hmm.
played on both classic rock and oldies stations. Like that isn't those are AM radio staples, whereas like Ohio is more an FM type thing, which back then I realized we're totally dating, or I'm dating myself by even mentioning the distinction. But back then in the 70s, I remember like FM was like long hair stuff. It was out there. It was harder. The AM real classic stuff like that first Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young album was a huge AM radio smash. So I'm gonna say
Yeah.
Our House is number one. No, wait, our House should be number one, but Ohio will be.
Okay, so I wouldn't say Our House should be number one, but I think it probably is. Um, so that's going to be the one I think should be or is. Um, okay, so I'll leave the Neil stuff aside because obviously I'm very biased toward Neil. But kind of putting that aside a bit, I'll say Carry On is the one that I think should be the number one, but won't, and go with Our House is what is.
All right. Well, Our House is number one. Ohio is a very close second, though. Very, very close
Okay.
second. Carry On is in the top five. Um, wow, that first album is good. Can you? I mean, I'm going to ask you because we try to be positive. We definitely try to be positive. Can you name something worth listening to on the American Dream album?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so American Dream um has some good Neil stuff on it, actually. So there's a song called Feel Your Love that's actually the about the last thing on there, which is a pretty good Neil song, but it's buried on the album. Um, After that, I don't know if I have much.
Yeah.
The title track I don't think is too bad. That is also a Neil song. This old house is another Neil song, which is all right. I think the Neil stuff on there, you know, even putting my bias aside, I think the Neil stuff on there is pretty good. Not his best, but pretty good. Um, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of throwaway stuff on here for sure.
Yeah. Deja Vu is so good. And I think that's technically the next studio album, right? Doesn't it go from Deja
The
Vu,
second,
the second studio album's American Dream?
what?
In the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young chronology, the
Uh
first
huh.
studio album they put out is Deja Vu, right?
Yeah, as a foursome, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next album as a foursome is American Dream.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay.
And I can't think of a bigger fall off in terms of just sheer going from like I don't know if the first one, if Deja Vu is a masterpiece, but it's at least it's halfway to a masterpiece. And American Dream is like it debuted in the cutout bin. It was that bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, it kind of goes back to, Neil for me is like Dylan for you, where we probably have too much to say about them, so we have to kind of hold back maybe.
I
Um,
guess.
but uh, but I think that is one of the interesting things about Neil is that he was never really going to chase the dollar because it's like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young were the biggest thing in the world, and right when he left them, and it just didn't really seem to be what he was in it for, and yeah, didn't come back to those guys for, what, if it's so 88, so 18 years later. 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 18 years
Yeah, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
last
So,
one. This will be a hard one, though. I think this is going to be a difficult one. The Birds.
oh, well, I would think that Mr. Tambourine Man is kind of always what it's going to be, right?
Turn, turn, turn would be my guess as to what it is. What it should
Okay.
be is a
Well,
very tough one. That's a tough one.
all right. I'm going to go with Mr. Tambourine Man will be it, the one. And, huh. The Birds have a lot of songs I think are great. I don't know what I think is the pinnacle of it.
Because you can't really pick one of the Graham Parsons ones because it's kind of unfair. And not only that, Sweetheart of the Rodeo is their best album, right? I don't think there's any debate about that.
Yeah, I think if you're going, certainly if you're going to take it as an entire package, I think it is.
They have
And
so many
yeah, I
great
mean, I would say, following my inclination toward the Graham Parsons stuff, Hickory Wind might be the one that I like the most. So I'll just kind of put that aside and then focus on the pre-Graham Parsons stuff. Um, I don't know, maybe Mr. Tambourine Man is what it is and is what it should be too. So I'll just go with the same song for both of those.
I like Turn 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 as because I think that was on the Forrest Gump soundtrack, wasn't it? I'm not saying it should be. I'm saying Turn 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 ended up on some huge album soundtrack. Uh, if I recall, and whether I do or don't doesn't matter, I guess. But I love. I want to pick some oddball thing. I want to pick like Mr.
Oh,
Spaceman or.
well, I'm looking. So I haven't looked to see what the answer is yet, but I am looking at what this is the Birds, which again is grammatically awkward.
Yeah.
This is the Birds playlist, and I know what's number one on that.
Wait, hold on.
So
Oh, I don't
I
have.
say there's no chance. I'm just gonna say there's no chance of it being an oddball from looking at this.
Oh, it's one of the two. I would have never picked 8 Miles High. You Ain't Going Nowhere, I think, is a good call.
Yeah.
Because it's a Roger McGuinn singing. Although that album, I don't know. This is a really good playlist because Wasn't Born to Follow is spectacular. Mr. Spaceman is spectacular. Draft Morning, spectacular. Chestnut Mare doesn't have Take a Whiff on Me. What's going on here? No Take a Whiff on Me? No Great American Pastime? This playlist is actually a bit bogus. We could do better.
We'll see. We'll see what.
We could do better. All right, yeah, let's have a look at what the actual song is. All right, so Turn Turn
Not
was
much.
is number one.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think this is the playlist calling the shots here because the number one song is number one by a good margin over Mr. Tambourine Man.
Yeah, boy, I really want to listen to the Birds. In fact, the second we're done, I think we're gonna
See, and yeah, that's kind of where I've been with all this Laurel Canyon stuff that I've been exposed to lately. So
yeah, but see, this was a great idea to talk about this, and I understand your point. I can't argue that you're wrong. Like I can't argue that the number one song cannot be used as a proxy for the best song. I'm not. I'm not even really trying to make a. I can't argue that point. However, when you use Spotify for music discovery, looking within an album at which songs are getting the most love on an album, especially if you've never heard of any of it, it does tend to be a pretty good directional tool to figure out how to get into an album or what to grab from an album. So
yeah,
yes, I concede the overall point, but I do think the top five at the top of the page, that's popularity. But I think the amount of listens that like deep cuts get is usually a pretty good way of finding the good deep cuts. So I'm not willing to throw out the Spotify stats just yet.
Well, okay, but looking at the Birds, this is a good example of my complaints about it. So you look at the this is the Birds. I'm sick of saying it. This is the Birds playlist, and you look at what the tracks are in order, and that's basically the most popular tracks on their streaming. So you go right down the list. It's Turn, 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 Mr. Tambourine Man, 8 Miles High, You Ain't Going Nowhere, Lay Lady Lay. I just looked at it. Those are the top 5 songs, and I think it just basically goes that way from 1 to 10. So you have all the people probably that start the playlist listen to Turn, Turn, Turn. They might not even listen to it for a full minute, but that makes it the number one track on the streaming um, standings, I guess. And it just goes that way down the list, and then by the time you get to number 10, you don't Mr. Well, that's okay. So I guess we'll go Mr. Spaceman because that's like the last uh, the last song that doesn't repeat on the top 10 here. And you're down to 5,000 streams at that point when you get down to
Yeah.
Mr. Spaceman.
Yeah. Although that should have so much. I wasn't there at the time. That someday I need to read a book about the Birds because I feel like they had that early phase which everybody knows and everybody likes and the oldie station stuff, but the the stuff that seemed to have come along like after they were popular is so dramatically better than their popular stuff. Like it's almost like it's almost the inverse. Like the less beloved it is, the better it is. It's one of the very few catalogs I can think of that are like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because David Crosby left the band because I mean, one, it was a lot to do with his ego, I think, because he wasn't getting his songs on the albums, and they probably weren't good enough to be on the albums. But he also, when he left them, it was said that there's a lot of junk that makes it on the album, and I think they got better about making better albums after he left. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, they had if you just the list of people, and I guess this is a way to sort of tie it back together. This is another reason why the Eagles deserve you just no matter how many good songs the Eagles have, they were derivative of this stuff. You know what I mean? They didn't they I just think they were sort of a crass cash in of not just what Graham Parsons did, but those late Birds records a little bit too.
Well, okay, I'm going to go back to what I said though, because I think that partly informs what I think, but I don't think the crass thing. I don't quite think. I don't know. I mean, they were driven to be big, and that's what happened to them. So that's part of what is not likable about them. But the thing about it is it comes down to the songs for me. I know I feel like a broken record. I always say that. It comes down to the songs for me though, and the songs are kind of there. Like there's not the hits are actually good hits, whereas a lot of bands have hits that I think are just kind of garbage, but they're hits, like they know how to make something popular. So I feel like there was some earnestness in their songcraft that, like I'll put it this way. I think I would be perfectly happy to just hate the Eagles. Like, I think that would actually be kind of satisfying. So it isn't like there's part of me that wants to like the Eagles, but I just kind of feel like I can't help but give them credit because of the songcraft.
I would say that you do not need to listen to the albums if you have the greatest hits. The amount of material worth listening to them from them that isn't on their greatest hits is very, very small. Those albums have a couple of massive singles on them. A couple of them, I think the first one has quite a bit but every one of the albums is good for at least one massive single. Some of them have two, some of them have three. But if it wasn't a single by the Eagles, it was junk. I mean, it was genuine crap.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably fair, but it kind of goes back to the Byrds. The Byrds had their hits and then had some not so great songs around those hits on those albums. Yeah, I mean the Eagles weren't great album makers, but they were great hit makers.
I can drop the topic on the Eagles. I would just say they were crass I just want to defend the word crass in that Graham Parsons did love country music.
Yeah.
I don't think he was wearing the nudie suits with a totally like ironic smirk. Like, he wasn't a postmodernist about.
No, he was as pure as can be. But I don't think that, like, I don't want to. If we're going to compare the Eagles and Graham Parsons, that's a runaway for me. I mean, we certainly both agree that Graham Parsons was, way more important than Eagles to either of us.
Never loved country music, and I do think the Byrds, even you could maybe make a case that Roger McGuinn was a convert, not necessarily in love with it, but even him, I think, had more reverence for the stuff that they were derivative of. I think they were genuinely interested in that music. I think they, Bob Dylan, I think, brought them to a love of folk music, and the Eagles to me were just cynical from day one and never gave a shit about the music.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would agree with that. Like I said, I think they were pretty earnest in their songcraft. I just think they did want to be big. But I don't think that necessarily means that they were just doing whatever music they needed to do in order to get them what they wanted. I don't quite go with.
I'll meet you halfway. The first album, which I do think is an interest of all the albums, is among the more interesting records, which doesn't make it interesting. It just means in their catalog it's interesting. I do think there was a tiny amount of sincerity on that record, and that's what makes it tolerable. But by the second record, they were already doing some corny cash-in shit about, like they were worried about the Doolin Dalton gang or whatever. like there was some song cycle in 1974 that needed to be done about cowboys from them. Like they immediately, they just went, the second they got traction, they just went overboard with the corny, phony, affected, Western stuff. Come on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've really spent time listening to that as an album.
Nobody has. It's terrible.
So I'm not really going to speak to that album. I think Desperado's an all right song, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's best by what is it, that grade school in Canada that had the record, the Langley Grade School? The Langley Grade School version of Desperado spanks the original. I'm putting that on our playlist,
well,
too.
It probably says something that they picked it, but I thought you were going to say Linda Ronstadt.
So the Langley School's Music Project, if you've never heard this record, I don't know the whole story of it, but I read about it in this book called Songs in the Key of Z. It's some music class in Canada. They just decided to tape themselves singing the songs that were on the radio or songs that were popular, and it's an amazing album. It's fantastic.
It's not so much the songs that were popular. Like the selections are really spot on. They're a lot of times they're
a lot of beats.
Yeah, a lot of times there's songs that definitely weren't on the radio probably.
Yeah, the song, their cover of Desperado is like, I don't think you could. I thought it was fake at first. It's such a perfect kid singing Desperado. Like, we didn't have memes back then, but like it was like a meme. It's so on the nose. So anyway, I'm putting that on the playlist. All right. We started with the Eagles, and I think we can end with the Eagles, and I think we can put a 50 episode moratorium on Don Henley, Glenn Frey, or the Eagles. Joe Walsh is exempt.
But yeah, Joe Walsh is exempt. He will live on. But but hopefully after a full year, we've exercised the eagle demons.
Yeah, you know what though? I never wish ill on anybody, but I
But
particularly hope that all remaining members of the Eagles survive another year for sure,
yeah,
so that it
well,
doesn't bring up the temptation.
and we might think we're done, but as somebody once said, you can check out anytime you like. You can never leave.
We are definitely going to leave the topic of the in the Eagles, if not in the short run, in the long run.
Well, as long as we've taken it to the limit, I guess.
All right, we'll get out of here. At least, you know what? I had one for one of these nights, and even I can't make myself do it. I just can't. And don't you dare. I can hear it. I can hear the motor revving up, and you need to take it easy.
That's life in the fast lane.
All right, I'm. I know we're not supposed to swear. I really want to. I'm not going. All right. On that note, that is a perfect place to stop. Actually, the perfect place to stop would have been a couple of minutes ago, but things happen. All right, Mr. Flick, that's 50 in the can and a year. We have goals and we have aspirations. We can always get better. Certainly with that much Eagles talk, like we've given ourselves lots of room to lots of headroom here to improve. I expect a big year out of us. By going that deep into the Eagles this late in the game, we spent a lot of the goodwill of our listeners. We really owe them to come back strong.
We really did, and I promise, we'll just keep on getting better and better. But I can't tell you why.
Wow. You really worked that one in there. Yeah. I'm resisting the temptation because you did set up something for Already Gone. I'm just not, because didn't Mr. Jackson Brown write Already Gone? I think that's not sure that's an Eagles composition.
Yeah, I think that actually came up in the documentary.
Oh God. All right, that's episode 50. That's enough. That certainly is enough. I think we've said it all. We've covered it all. I don't know what our next topic will be. I know what it won't be, and you can thank us for it then.
We will come to our senses.
Oh. All right, I'm not going to swear, but F off. Yep. All right, that's it. We're out. We'll see you next time.
These things that are pleasing me can hurt me somehow.
I'm not taking the bait. I'm not. I will not.
Okay. Yeah.
Inside, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. We will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Episode 51 coming up next week.